Yud Tes for Iyar, Hatashin Samech Tes. We're in Hemshik Samech Tes of the Rebbe Yeshav on Ahmed Lamed.
She's missing one person, huh?
You're wrong. You're wrong.
Alright, so we saw the union of the Yisavas for Elamas was in a even van een arech dafke. And we saw that was because it was from the Inen Harotzen. And we equalized between Rotzen and Seive Kolaumin. What Seive Kolaumin is the Inen of how the Iyar Elokia, the Iyar in Seif is makif to the elements and not Bepnimius, as is well known. We saw in Perek Menches Bariches that the Seiv is Nimto Bekol HaMakimis, Bekol HaMadreges, Bekol Einyoni, but it's not Be'asoga, and it's not Betfisa, and not Be'slapsha. And so we saw that was the Inen Harotzen in the Inen of the elements. And we saw that the Ike Savas of the Yesh, Ayin, the Yesh of the elements, Biyah, and eventually the Yesh Hataktin and Elam Hazer, is from Iyar in Sefer Seivu Kol Almin. V'yodua the Seivu Kol Almin hu b'chinas Harotzain shuhu b'chinas Makif. And we dealt a little bit with the concept of Rotzen being Makif. And we do the example of the from Rotzen by the Adam, that the Rotzen has no real Eva or any Mokim Miyuchad Shaboihu Mislabish in the Evrei Haguf. It's Nimtza Bukol Haguf Bishove. And we brought the dogma of how a mensch is able to berege Mamish who later is a Pu'ula, then the Evrei Haguf answer immediately without any hesitation. Klau. For that is the Heichacha, the Din and the Rotzen is Nimtu B'kol HaEvorim. However, it's not be Islabshas B'kol HaEvorim. And we aroused the question as what prompts the Din and Harotzen, and we mentioned that there was a concept that we called Machshova, and that is connected with the Klaus union of Oineg, or Tainug. What the Adam is noite, he always leans to do anything, any act is prompted by a certain union of oineg or tainug that he has been in ha'u b'isa harega. And so even though the union from Rotzen v'oineg are not mishtalshel one from the other, and Rotzen v'oineg are really two separate koiches altogether, those who learned in some of Wovers, maybe remember that over there, Bariches. However, one can say in certain oifanim that the oineg is a siba to the union of Rotzen. And a siba means that it causes a b'derech richuk or b'derech makif, but not b'derech hishtalshus. Because Rotzen is a koyach mitzadi etem, and so is oineg a koyach mitzadi etem. But both of them are nivdolim zemizeh, and they can be a reason or a cause one to the other, but not a mocker. And so therefore we saw that the Zeila Maila, that the Iyar ein Sefer Seivu Kolaumin, or that's the Ike Kaviocho Gilui Harotzen by the Eberstein, of Mipchinas Harotzen Nisavu Ho'elamet. Davki von the Inen Harotzen that came about, the Inen von Hisavus of the elements, Kamesha Kosu, Kol Asher Chofetz Hashem also. And that's well known. Chofetz is the Inen Harotzen, but at the Pasuk in Tehillim, Kol Asher Chofetz Hashem also, and the only difference between the word Reitza or Chofetz, as well known, we we've had on many occasions that the Inyan von Rotze is a klolistic word for Rotzen. Ve'ilu Chofetz indicates the Pnimis Rotzen. So we see that Ko Asher Chofetz, anything with the Eibishter wanted, he brought into the Inyan von Asiyah, meaning that all inyanim of Hisavas, Yesh Mi'ayin, what that's the inyan of Asiyah, Kaviohu, or they come from the meaning of Rotzen. And the fact that it's Chayfet or Chofetz, or that tends to indicate that in Rotzen itself you have madregas and levels. Zehu Shaisavas Hu B'Prinas Ein Aroich. And Mamer, since the inyan of Rotzen is Makif, Pedukma Kamoshahu Eitzal Adam, and therefore it's Seiv Kolamin, which means that all of the elements are Botta Betelim Legamri, Legabi Zev, Ein Shum Maila Vishum Elam Legabi another in front of the Seivev, and therefore it follows that the Inyan the Yisavas is in a Bechina of Ein Areich. That means absolutely no related kesher between the Ein Seif HaSeivev and the Yesh. She'ein ze b'bchinas kiruv, that's not in a even of nearness to Hainu Gili Pnimi. What is kiruv is where the Eibishter is mitzamtzim himself lefi erech of the nivra or of the particular inyan that he's bringing about, and he gives into it a limited ha'orah, and that's able to enter it in what we call pnimi. It's able to go into a pnimis or to a slapshet. However, where it comes in a form of seivev, and all the elements are betelim, and it's makif of kol elements, then it's not in a even kiruv, which would mean pnimi. The oz, if it were to be like that, loy hoyo yisavasayesh kenoida, because if the Eibishter was mashpia but even kiruv and but even pnimi, then you couldn't have a yesh which would feel itself to be a yesh, but it would be even a beetle v'iskalus in the Eloki, and it would be botel, and the higher that particular level of course, the higher the beetle, it could even be botel b'matiyas lagamre. Therefore, you can't have a inyan from yesh if you were to do it b'derech pnimi, because the yesh would never really separate off and be a yesh, be at least in its own feeling. And if I said that that's one of the factors that determines that the Hisavas can't be even from kiruv, which would be Gilui Pnimi. Ki im b'bchinas richuk. It has to be davke in a form of distance. The opposite of kiruv, shalidei sha'ola b'retzainei yizborach lahavis, alidei zenis hav. In other words, that it was davke as well known that the Inyan von Rotzein works in a even von richuk. It's not in a even von kiruv yislapshes in the Inyan, but it just tells all the Inyanim that this is what it wants, and everything has to come to the party. In other words, if the Rotzen says that he wants to go somewhere and he wants to take you, then all the Avery Aguf just have to get moving, and they've got to go and they've got to move v'chule, and if he says that he wants to understand something, even though it may be hard for his moyach to grasp it, but if he says that he wants be'emes to understand, so then all the inyanim of the moyach follow suit, and that's what we see that le'elam yilmeid adam b'makim shali bei chafez, that if he learns where he has a rotzen, so then the brain will follow suit, even though it may be difficult for him and it may not be easy, because the rotzen works in an even von richuk, it's guizer, be'even makif, and it moves everything to its command, as you might say, or its demand. And therefore the same Lamaila, the very fact that there was just an aliyah beratene, just the very fact that the Eibishter had a wanting, is by him, that's enough, that everything just came about in an even yeshmi ayin or b'blishum kiru b'blishum harikot islapshus of the rotzen in the Inyan, no, in an even from richuk davke, and that's why it is that the yesh feels himself to be a a Matthias and he's not aware of his Mokia and he doesn't feel his Mokia. But Pnimi, because the Mokia brought him about in even from commandment in even from who Tzivor v'nivra, who is one on the famous Lashon, that the Rotzen just remains Mudal or Misrachik, and it just commands, and the Inin came out. Yeah, the Inin came about. Said, ever said the Rebbe, V'hinei al zeh gufa, on that matter its own self, she'yeh rotzen lehisavas biyah, tzorik liyes al zeh mamutza. Now we come back to the Inin we said before, that l'chayre in Inin, which is Ein HaReich, you don't, it's not shaykh a mamutza, since it was in an even from Richuk. We pointed out a mamutza is only where madregas are mishkarev one to the other, and they're mashpiyah sokos up even pnimi. Like we saw the Moshe of the Matrugeman with the Talmidim, v'chulu. Therefore, said the Rebbe, we were looking for a teretz. How would we have a mamutza in a Yisavas which was Ein HaRei? He said, now that we've said that the whole Yisavas was mitzadi inyan von Rotzen, and it's even von Richuk, purely mitzadi aliyah be Rotzen bilvad. He said, now we'll understand why we need a inyan von Amamutza. So l'chayra, what's the kesha? We've just made it even more vivid. We said, no, I think we should completely bedel Richuk or Ein HaRei. Is Ein HaRei? What is that? How does that give me to understand that I need a mamutza in the middle? Key. What key is in the sinus town? Because harotzen lehisaves tzorik liyos sheyesh le al kol ponim shaychus el ha'isaves she'esoyer barotzen kaviyochol al zeh. In other words, the Rebbe emes takes a place in the form of Richuk. On the other hand, we have to say that there must be some, how do you call it, a necessity at least for some connection or shaykhs meaning how do you call it, an applicability, to the Yisavas, that he was aroused in a rotzen kaviyochol al zeh. Like we just pointed out, the rotzen is completely withdrawn from the Eilames, Richuk, Hainu she'enu b'chinas ispailas liyos mispoel v'nitfas b'zeh. That means to say that the rotzen doesn't have any, what you might call, interreaction. It's not affected in any way. Liyos mispoel, that it should be in any way emotionally aroused, v'nitfas, or grasped in the union of the Yisavas. In other words, the Yisavas doesn't affect it in any way at all. We have to say that it's nonetheless got some sort of an applicability or closeness to the Dova Amisave Mimeno. Why? So he said, Dahainu, that means to say, Yesh Teufes Mokim al Koponim, that the yesh should have some place, should hold some place. Liyesh al zeh hiseirus rotzen kaviyochol. Well, he said that there should be an arousal of a rotzen, at least, to bring it about. Now, how could we possibly sort of give that mutzag to be a little bit understood? So, emes, the rotzen is, by very definition, the rotzen is bavdola, and the rotzen is b'inyan shorichuk. But see that every union of Yisavas, where one thing brings about another, and afilu l'mayla kaviyoch, where the Eibishter brings about the whole union of the oilamas, the union from the yesh, then you can't kaviyoch have Yisavas if you run away from something. There has to always be a certain kiruv in order lahaves. In other words, mitzad echad, it can be betachlis avdola. Over mitzad sheni, if it's not mishkarev el ha'inyan lahaves, then you won't have a ha'inyan for nisavas. In other words, that making something into being and making it come about as an entity, you need in some way or another to be mekarev to it in order to make it a entity. Or just by being moved out from something, you're not going to make it into a entity. In other words, it's purely from richuk. It's not shaykh to bring about ais of it. And if I says that we have here two contrasting, or like a dove hipuchay, mitzad echad, that in order to bring about ayesh, like he said, not in infant or pneumic, because it was where pneumic it wouldn't be ayesh. There has to be a havdalah and a richuk, and therefore the infant rotzen plays the ikar role here, because rotzen is like that, and it's moved out and it's maki. And therefore rotzen, the whole infant elements came about. But since the etzem tnua of that madrege at the etzem rotzen is a infant havdalah v'richuk, and we have to say that in the rotzen gufa there was a certain kiruv to the inyan of the yisavas of the yesh. Like we see by a mensch, he can have all sorts of wills to do all sorts of inyanim, what we might generally call them ambition. You know, he say, oh yes, I'd love to do this, and I would do this, and I am ready to do this. But when it actually comes to doing it, he had to have a rotzen mamish to do it, and there's got to be a certain yurida in the rotzen to be somewhat mishkarev to the whole inyan, to actually say, oh yes, we want to do this, but now we want it, vapoil mamish, and we want to actually bring it into action. Well, that's like a nuance in the rotzen, where the rotzen goes close to actually giving the whole thing some place, and giving it, as it were, a reference status, l'gavi the rotzen. So therefore, that's the old cloud, that from richuk you can't actually get aisavis. So therefore, we have to say that there is a certain allowance on the part of the rotzen, that it gives the yesh a certain place, a certain status. Not that it's mamish mislabish preserved, but even pnimi, but it gives it a certain place, b'derek kiru. And we're going to see that the passage of the rotzen from etzem rotzen into that kiru alayesh, well, for that kufa you need in the middle of a mamutza, because that in itself is a tremendous difference. That in itself is a tremendous difference in the rotzen between the immediate dollar of the rotzen and the kiruv somewhat to the actually savas of the given entity that's under consideration. He said, "Dahainu she'iyah yesh teifes makom al kopanim li salzeh seres rotzen kaviyochu li havaisei." Now, in the brackets, ukamoi b'chinas reimemes hamalucha. Take, for example, we had the whole dogma earlier in the Hemshech of when a king becomes a king, alidei, the coronation and the service for people, the matter, etc. So we saw that there are different levels in his separation, or what you might call his exaltation from his reimamus from the people. The first one we saw as reimamus achmius, and the etzem hamelech, that makes him moved on mikol hadoyer and mikol b'nei adam, and that's in etzem atzmusay. That remains tomid b'merchach b'richu, and that's a reimamus achmius. However, after that we saw that there's a certain arousal in his rotzen that he would like eventually to be a melech. They've been spoiled by him that he considers the whole inyan, and then the reimamus that the melech has becomes in reference to the people. In other words, he begins to consider how can he be elevated and lauded from this particular nation and from this particular people in this particular Medina. And he remains mortal mehim, but tachlis. But the other hand, he's giving them a certain place. The very fact that he considers now to be a king over them, well, that gives them a certain place, so that even though he remains muvdal, but there's a certain kiruv in the roimamas to them, and that eventually brings him to become coronated by the people, and they elevate him over them. But then there's already a direct connection between them, and then in the end he goes down, he busies himself with all the different details of running the Medina. So that's the dogma that we see. There can be a reimamis, and it's a reimamis in a high level, but it's already given place to what you might call the object of the reimamis, because the word reimamis always implies there's something. Elohim kain is a reimamis atzmiyah. וכמו יעשה בבחינת רממס המלוכה שזהו שמובדל מרומה מהעם שאין העם תפס מוחים ליש מספויל ונתפס בזה. He's not affected by them that they mamish causing him a spilers. So in that regard they don't have any makom. ולא כמו שהוא מעיין ומפקח בענייני המדינה. Not, for example, at the other end of the process, at the final process, when he's already paying attention and he's inspecting, all the different inyonim of the Medina. Well, then he's in a state of entering pnimi into the Medina. That's called islapsha. And yet, nonetheless, there is a point where the people already move into the picture. He's Bechinas Reimamas for Havdalah, but he's Reimamas Havdalah in a relative sense. He's Reimam Murumam Havdalah from the people. In other words, he's already sized them up. He's already taken them into account some way or another, which means that even though he's not Mishpoil Mizeh Mamish, or nonetheless, he's given them a certain Tefisas Makom. So that's we're saying here that in the Rotzen Atzmi of the Eibishter, we have to say that if he brought about Yesh Mi'ayin there to Misavas, he must have somehow or another given the Isavas a certain place. Umikol Mokim, who b'pchinas Reimamas al nonetheless the king remains in our even for Reimamas Allah of Emet. Each here come down a bit in their direction, and they have a certain reference to him, but he's still in for Reimamas alayhim. Hari yesh lo shaychus Eloham sham tefes mokim al kol ponim, at least liyesh misroimam alayhim. In other words, both things are true. On the one hand, he's misroimim, but what is he misroimim? He's misroimim from this group of people. And Mama Kunta is that there is a form of Tvisas Mokim. He's now Misraimim Mizeh. He's no longer Misraimim Be'etzem Atzmusa, even that he doesn't have any shaykhs to anything. Edifar, says the Rebbe, well, that's the concept of a thing being moved al b'erech or rochik b'erech, and yet nonetheless finding a certain kiruv to the Indian in order that there should actually be the necessary what you might call process to make the whole thing reach its final tachlis. So therefore he says that Rebbe, Harei yesh lo shayches, liyesh misreimam aleim, ukemoi kein harotzim. In our case, ukemoi kein harotzim lahaves. Similarly, is the Eibishter's rotzen to bring about the oilamas. Chorik liyesh b'pchinas shayches ele eisavez, misreirim berotzen kaviyochol liyesh lahaves. Es hayesh. We have to say that the Eibishter misreirim beloshen rabbi, meaning lamaila, that the misreirim lamaila berotzen kaviyochol lahaves es hayesh. In other words, that there's a certain kiruv in the rotzen to the particular concept of the yesh, even though at that stage it's also murumam and even sharuchuk miha yesh, which means that the actual isavas comes about bikar from that level, and therefore we see that on the one hand it's rochaik, and yet on the other hand there's a certain kiru, and that's what we find that the Alter Rebbe over there in Tanya and Perek Mem Ches. The Alter Rebbe says that he even say veiv kol almin. So here we see the two inyonim, how they are taking their place in the klolos musag. On the one hand we say seivev, he's muvdal. Seivev means the idea of surrounding and muvdal. However, you say seivev kol Almin, which means that he's Sevev, but he's Sevev from something. He's Sevev from the world. Sevev Klal Min, which means that Lagabi the Sevev, the Almin do have some sort of a reference. And therefore it's called that Loshen Sevev called Almin. And when we want to say, the Yemit is in the Havdalah of the Erolki Mitzada Etzem, then we say Sevev Stam, or we say, Sevev Ha'amiti, or then we don't say Sevev Kol Almin, or then we say something which is moved out Be'era Betachlim. And for that you can't have the Indian of Yitzhavis because of the Havdalah Be'era Lagamri. Therefore said that Rabbi V'lochein Meprinas Rotzen Zeh. Oh, so that's the end of the brackets. Now that brackets began, Ukamoi Bechinas Reimamas. That began with the Moshul. For the meaning from Reimamas. So in the middle of that brackets, we had little sub brackets. And then it went on with the Nimshal, in our case, in the meaning from Rotzen, and so that closes the brackets.
I'm just, I'm confused why they use the word here, Richuk, foreigners.
Richuk means distance.
Right, but I mean...
It's not the opposite of Kiruv B'der Pnimius. Kiruv B'der Pnimius means that I enter the thing and I'm in slapshas. And I have a certain tfisa inside there actually. Richuk means that I'm in an open for an Abdullah, we say. I'm separate from it. Not Richuk B'mokim, there's not so many thousand miles away or something like that. What it means is that I'm not betfisa of a slapshas in that thing. You follow?
Right.
That's what it means, Richuk.
But I mean, it seems like Makif, I don't know.
No, we're not seeing of Makif. Makif is eating from Richuk.
Also, why would you even call the thing that it's far away? If Hashem is by himself and there's nothing else, if there's something else, it's ultimately close. Because if there's something else, which is the creation.
Something else?
Right. The Hashem creates the iron, the Yeshua. Why do we say that it's Richuk? If really it's the only other thing, right? But if it's the only other thing.
I just explained to you. We're not talking about Richuk in Makom. We're not saying so many miles, or so many inches, or so many centimeters. We're not talking about in place. We're not talking about in place.
Right.
I pointed out at the beginning of my remarks that the Sefer Kolom is found everywhere. Filled with Pnimius. So why do we say that he's Sefer? Because he's not Behitlab Shut. He doesn't enter the he's just there, even that all of them are Batalim Legabe. And that's called Richuk. That's called Richuk. And Kiru is when the thing enters into the Keli of the Inyan and is mislavish in it. So that's called Kiru. That's called Kiru. And therefore, Mibchinas Rotzen Zeh Nisabe Liyos Oilam Bibchinas Metzias Dovol Ubibchinas Yesh. Due to the fact that the Seivev, albeit Seivev Kol Almin, of since of course it's Seivev, it's moved out, and it's not Bekiru, and not Beslapshas, not Nitfas in the Indian, and therefore it brings about a type of Yisavas where the Oilam which came about from that is in the form of a Metzias Dovo. It's like a thing to be found. It's like it's there, and in a state of Yesh. It's in a form of feeling itself to be a entity. And that's what we call the Indian for Metzias Dovor. Dover meaning the idea of a thing which finds itself. Yeah? So something which finds itself means that it has a certain reference in its own right, like it's whence it came from. And therefore it's in, but not only is it a Metzias Dover, but it's in the form of a Yesh. It feels itself to be a separate entity and is not aware of its makor. And that's what we call the Indian of Richuk. Yeah, because where you have Pnimiyas and Islavshas, then the Mulubash feels the Mislabesh B'Teicho and is aware of him. In different dagas come over. But where it's a Indian from Richuk, then he doesn't feel the Moker. Even though he's completely batel to the Moker. So he says, "Dehine harotzen k'moi shehu bi'atzmus oyer ein tzeiv." If we take the inyan from rotzen, how it is in the very essence of the Eibishter, hari lo yisavem mizeh metzias hayeh. There can't, or there won't be, yisavas from that level in the form of a metzias hayeh. Because, like we said, in order for there to be metzias hayeh, there has to be a certain yerida in the rotzen to be mishkarev to the inyan of the yesh lahavaitzay. But if we were to take the inyan for rotzen how it is in atzmas oyer ein tzeiv, then there wouldn't come about anything which would be in the form of a metzias hayeh. So here we see another nuance now, that in order for the rotzen to bring about a metzias yesh, then, like we saw, there has to be a certain kiruv to the level which it's going to bring about. And therefore we have to say that that rotzen is a lower level in the inyan for rotzen, because it's nice and makon to a thing which is it as it were gives it place. And those are the two opposite nuances. On the one hand, it's moved al b'tatlis, and yet on the other hand, it does give it a certain kiruv, a certain possibility for it to be ayesh, to feel itself. And that means that the rotzen must have undergone a certain symptom from the state that is colorless of the rotzen in atzmas ein tzeiv. V'yashiyesh rotzen al biyah, is the chulu ukemoi bechinas ak. So he said, even though there is a rotzen al biyah, even we have to say in the inyan of the rotzen how it is more kolol in the atzmas, then we have to say that even there's some rotzen for the elements that we have, bria yitzira v'ya asiyah. In other words, everything must go back to the original rotzen, because if the Avish didn't want, then nothing would ever be. So he must have wanted right back in the highest of all the madregas of the rotzen, and that's for sure that rotzen saw all the madregas and knew all the madregas that were going to come. However, had at that level it been mahave, it wouldn't have been mahave the etzaminin of the yesh. Now all the elements would have been botel b'tachas habitul b'metzias, and there wouldn't have been the inyan for metzias dover. Which means that on the one hand, in atzmas ein tzeiv, there must be a presence of a rotzen even for biyah. However, over there it's not in such a way that it's able or ready to bring about the etzem yisavas of biyah. However, it's still a madrega in the Eivishter's rotzen that he foresaw, or he was oile kaviyoho v'rotzeina that there be all of those in yonim, which means that there's a rotzen where all the things are there, but they're not really there yet at all. And so we see the dogma by a mensch, that we see there's certain stages in a mensch where he can have a rotzen, and he says, "Oh, I really want to do kach I really want to do kach for kach." But that's a rotzen which is tomun and nelam b'teicha adam ma'oid, and nobody knows about the rotzen. He doesn't even talk about it. Afilu li'achmei. He's not really megala the whole thing. He's sayers li'achmei, and yet in his quiet moment he already pictures in that rotzen. And maybe he can see in that rotzen all the details in a more free functioning way than when he actually comes closer with the rotzen to doing it. Because then the rotzen becomes busy and to a certain extent gives a certain tfisus makom to the end. But we see that's why I used the word before, ambition, that sometimes a man can picture in his mind a whole thing that he would like to do, and he can even have details in it, and even he can see all the different ifanim of its movement, that the way they are there, they're different than what they are when he actually has a rotzen to carry it out per poil. There they have a much greater reference to the actual mahus of the rotzen than what they do up there. It could be that they have really no emissar reference to the mahus of rotzen. It could be that he won't do it in there. It could be that after a while that rotzen won't be shaykh yeah, that rotzen won't be shaykh al apoyo. But once it does become shaykh al apoyo, then usually the teikif harotzen carries it through. So that was it. That's what we mean to say, that there must be a rotzen of bi'ah in the rotzen, how it is called bi'atm safe. Yeah, afal pikein, it's not the rotzen lahabis. It's like the rotzen in a much more detached madrega. Ukemoi, and he brings the example, b'chinas odem kadmoin, ak. What it's going on, the odem kadmoin, that is the first parts of, or maybe we could call it in a general way, the infant, the first oilam, following the tzimtzum harisha. And it's, generally speaking, we don't refer to it as odem kadmoin, because those two words together are Hashem Kodesh, as it's put in Chassidus. And therefore we refer to it as Ak. That's, you just have to get used to it. I don't intend using that name any more than I have to, so we've already touched it, so from now on we'll say Ak. Yeah, now, those two words that make up the name Ak appear at first glance almost to be self-contradictory, because the word Odom indicates levels. Odom indicates where you've got Oiched and Midas, and you have even Levushim. Odom is indicative of a series of interrelated and proteus dike madrigas. The word Kadmein means primordial, something which is completely unlimited and ain't safe. In other words, higher and higher in the, what you might call the hafshota, the abstractity of the ain safe. So how did two of them get together? How can you call it Odom and Kadmaya? How can it be these two words together? And therefore, the Tzimtzum Harishon is the answer. That the Tzimtzum brought about that on one hand, the actual ain't safe and the pshitas of that Oestura remains Lagabi de Oilamas, which are going to now come about eventually. But they still remain in an even of Havdalah from Matthias. Even though they've already come about in a way that they can eventually lead to the Matthias. Actually, in the way they were in the Urshel of Tzimtzum, they didn't have either of those. They were completely ain't safe, and there was no way that they could be in any way even a mokir of the Proteus or Oilamas how they are afterwards in the Inafakudim and Oilam Atuyu and Oilam Atzilus v'chulu. Edifer says that's the union of the two levels of Odom and Kadmoin. In other words, that they're like two inyonim which are almost self-contradictory, but for that you have to blame, as it were, the Tzimtzum HaRishon. In other words, that it's the primordial machshava, meaning that it still ain't safe and bligvul, but all that is going to come about, everything which is going to be b'meshech kol ha'olam is b'meshech kol hazman v'kol ha'yonim, everything is kol over there in a general and completely abstracted way, and that's why we call it machshava, because the word machshava indicates something which is potential and abstracted. So there we said machshava hakiduma, b'chinas machshava klolius al kol ha'ishtaushlos mireish kol dagen ad sof kol dagen, that it's a machshava which is koilul even from the heder hamatzias, not in an existing way. It's not a klal to a prat, it's a klal mudal, it's what we call a klal which is not shaykh la prat. Yeah, it's koilul in itself, mireish kol dagen ad sof kol dagim, hainu ad seif v'taktiyasua siyah. It's koilul in itself all the levels, right down to the bottom of Asiya, even Olam Hazeh HaGashmiyah. If Ach is koilul in itself all of those inyanim, and it's the inyan of the first appearance after the Tzimtzum, then it's a madrega of rotzen, because the word machshava also includes in itself the concept of rotzen. Why couldn't we say that from the level of Ak, that's where the etzem misavas yesh mi ayin really occurs? So therefore he said, Mikol Mokim, we can't say that. He said, nonetheless, even though Olam Asiyah is Kol over there, is Kol all the Madregas, and even Olam Asiyah Hagashmi is also Kol over there. Nonetheless, he said, they're not Kol over there in the way that they are a form of a Hayesh. He said, nonetheless, even though everything has come about, even though in a way everything has come about, like we just said, so we can't run away from the fact that something did come about. Like we said, compared to the simplicity of the earth, there's already something is ready to be misguided from there, albeit in a very abstract way still, but something is there. So he said, come to realize that there was a Sabbath. He said, Mikol Mokim Hari Shom Atzilas V'Asiyah Hema B'Ashvoa Achas Mami. Even though Asiyah is there and so is Atzilas, but they're all in one absolute equality, but to get to the type of existence that they have. In other words, you can't say that Atzilas exists over there any more than what Asiyah does, or the other way around. You can't say there's more Asiyah there than there is Atzilas. It's all just completely and utterly in a form of absolute Claudius. And that Claudius makes them all like one Inyan. They're all Bashua Achas. Ad she'ein ba'ak b'chidus is chalkes madreges klau. Akamesh b'makim acher. They said you can't talk about the interdivision and the interdividing of one level from the other. That's what we call ischalke. In other words, that everything is there, but they're all there in one clolistic entity. They're not interdivided one from the idea. Which means that on the one hand there's what you might call a Matthias, and yet on the other hand it's not a Matthias which has got any shaykhs to what we understand Matthias, or to what we understand is Chalkes. And that a dogma is there is brought in Chassidus to what we say that the Etzem HaNefesh is what we say Noisei Kol HaKoiches, that the Etzem HaNefesh bears in itself all of the Koiches. Noisei Be'atzmes Kol HaKoiches. Now when we say the Etzem HaNefesh is Noisei Kol HaKoiches, we mean the very Etzem of the Pshitas HaEtzem. We mean Mamish Yechida V'afilu Ulai Lamayla Mizeh. And yet, nonetheless, we say that the nefesh is noisei, bears within itself the inyan from the koyches. Now, you can't go up there and say, oh, yeah, here's chokmah, here's chesed. In other words, but klape gilu, it's not noticeable, all of these inyanim, because they're all in one absolute equality. And what we mean, we say, bears in it in the sense that it's possible for them to be misgaleh by Yishu, oifen min away, found him, which are not moving to us exactly how it happened. But how it was prior to that, there's no possibility for it to be Mishkala Klalu. In the very Etzem of the Nefesh Mamish, the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Nun Aleph, the Alter Rebbe says over there that the Etzem of the Nefesh has no Iskalos of any Koyches in it. I feel the boy from Noises HaKoyches. That's the dogma that we can say that he bears within himself all the koyches, even though they're not really there, but Matthias, and yet on the other hand, they're not there. And that's what we call in the Lashon, the more what you might call technical Lashon of Chassidus, well, that's called Efshorius HaMatthias. Efshorius HaMatthias. In other words, it's possible for there to be a Matthias, and that wasn't there in a thing which is completely and utterly poshut, like the Yerusha now symptom. Although on the other hand, you can't actually identify it. The Golui, it's like a Inishel Shita. And therefore it's not potentiality either. Sometimes we call it koyach, potentiality, but it's even more dakis, slightly higher than potentiality. And that's the concept of all of them being bashvoa achas. And therefore he says there's no interdivision of madrigas in the union of Ak. We have to say the oilam asiyah shom even agale gamre. Im kain easy to understand how oilam atzilus is up there because oilam atzilus is elakut. But how do you understand that oilam asiyah in azamatzah? In other words, how do you understand Oilama Gashmi in a matter that it's only if Shorius, that's very, very difficult to picture. And that was the Rebbe up there, there's no difference in that of Shorius Hamachias between Oilama Shia Gashmi and Oilama Achilas. Ain't kol hebdel beineihem klal.
So is Atzilus in this case like a yesh?
Yeah.
Is Atzilus considered like a yesh from this point of view? Atzilus.
Oh yeah.
Like a yesh.
Yeah. Legabi the inif and ach. Well, it's hard to call Atzilus yesh because Atzilus is still a kuz. But enachanami. Legabi ach. There's a certain, what you might call Yerida in order to bring about Atzilus, a Yerida Brura to bring about Atzilus, but sometimes we call it Ayin for not Ayin Arei, but we call it Gilui Ahelem. But in Gilui Ahelem Gufa, it's like a sort of a heavy Yerida. But into Biyah, then it's already a very serious Yerida, and for there to be Biyah, there's a new Rotzen, and that's in for Malvus Chilas. Malvus Chilas is the emes of Mahave as Biyah. That's the one that actually, that's the Rotzen that actually brings about the in a Biyah Bapoyo. And he said, Vim came back Royal, and I am Asiya, Sean Baven Achale, Gamre. Dagam Shola Burotzain, Shia, Oilam Asiya. Even though we have to say that in that Rotzen, Kloli, Vachmi, how does it not? There was also the Infant Oilam Asiya, Ubayven Kach for Kach, and Dafkin this in this way, the way it is. Mikol Mokim Harotzen Hazeh, Hubchins Havdola Legamre, Ve'eno Be'erech, Shaychus Klal Eloah. See, it has no nearness or connection, or interrelation to the infant Asiya, in order that it should be able to actually bring it about. Like we said, every form of Aisavus needs a certain hiskarvus from the Mahave to the Misava. Lochein lo yisava mizeh b'chinas Asiya mamish, ki im bekoyach le. Now when we say koyach here, we don't mean real koyach, but we mean koyach in a general way, potentially, but not in any form of mamashis. The kishem shelei achar shenisavu ho'elamas. Harei b'chinas makshava keduma di aksei ve'vu makiv kulam. He said, just like after the elements have already come about. Harei the makshava keduma of ach is seivev u'makiv kulam. It's seivev u'makiv all the elements. V'alzeh omar v'chol koyma lifonech hatishtachaveh. And it's in reference to that we say that every standing stance will bow down in front of you. Hainu klolius atzio koyma da'ak. The whole generality of the shape, literally of the what you might call the koyma, the makeup or the standing up of ak. Dali deizeh kol hanivroim beteilim lelakus bi emes. So he said, "Come to," he said, after the elements have been then the inyan of an ak is seiver or maki for kulam. He said, therefore, legabi ak, they're in a form of tishtachaveh. What that means, bittul b'metzias mamish. And mikol mokim hari einzeh bahar goshes anivroim. They don't feel that. Adarabah ein b'chinas yesh baharga shotzon. They feel themselves to be a yesh. We don't feel all this absolute in a state of bittul b'shtachavoah, bittul b'metzias legamre legabi dina v'nak. And yet that's what you really are. But only gifted peoples after tremendous amount of effort and aliyah, madrega, they maybe feel it. But even Molay or even Pachis with it. To be mamish, even from Ishtachavoya, even Beetle, Emes, Telakuz. And Mikol Mokim, he said, it's not in the Hargosha. Or Kamoy Kain, an even greater Chiddush, Bechinas HaYoisher Diak, what you might call the Pnimi of Ak, Hari Nimshe Bekola Ishtaushlas, Ad Sei v'tachtias atziyah. In other words, that in the Iyar Pnimi of the elements, which is b'derech hakav mamish, even Ach has got an Iyar Pnimi to it, and but that's nimshach through all the madregas into tachtias atziyah. And that's what we call Yosha Deach. You might have listened in the Geras HaKodesh from the Alter Rebbe. Or Mikol Mokim Hari, Ein Ze Nirgish B'Nivroim Klal, even though it comes b'derech how do you call it, ishtaushlet, meaning that it's got a certain shaykhus already to the pnimi, nonetheless, ain't the nirgish nivroim klal, to say in Yamasha Yudiyah Hoel Yaina, ain't a machlachas as a bechira. Oh, he said, now we know what's this whole Indian that the Yudiyah is not machlachas as a bechira. Lama, why? The Bahar Geshosei Hariu Chofshi B'Bchiri Otzei V'hu Oisei Mikoyach Atzmei. In other words, the emphasis is that the Eibusher knows everything. The Eibusher Mitzad Ak, the Eibusher Vaisal. And that's the Indian of the Yosha. That's only something which is shy to, in a way, to Koch's Panimium, of even Mitzad the Yosha, the Panimi Ach remains in a Refa Fanav Havdolah, which means that the Eibusher knows all about you, he's sitting inside you and he knows all about you, he knows what's going to be and everything that has been, and he knows what you're going to do. He might say, well, if he doesn't, no Bechira. So he said, no, because the Infanach is Mudo B'Tachlis, or you feel in yourself that you're running your own show. To a certain extent, that's what the Eibusher wanted. He wanted that you should feel that you're running your own show, and that is the Inyan for Bechira. Inside that game, Kaviovel, the Eibusher gives you the Bechira, and he says, okay, you do it yourself. If you want to do it yourself, you do it. Or B'Makifalo, even though Nimtza boy. The Eibusher is saying, oh yes, we know what's going to happen anyway. But it's so mudal and so aimless a tvisa in an apnimi that it doesn't really affect it. You go ahead. So in the end, you can be blamed and not the Eibusher. In other words, you can say, well, albeit I played a game with you, but you decided, since you decided, then Sholem Alecha, Chaim Sholem, whoever you happen to be. Is a mela. From that it happens to follow a political matter that the whole Indian is like a game with the Nivra. And the whole Indian, that we have a Bechira, and it's an emphasis of Bechira. Because the Torah describes your Bechira, and then it gives you that Bechira to do, and it'll even, God forbid, it can even punish you if you don't make the right Bechira. Nonetheless, well, that's all like a game between a game. In other words, the Yosha Ravak brings the Eibusher Kavriyahu right inside your, what you might call your clockwork. And he comes right inside your Das Pnimi, and in there he also puts Bechira. And he says, I'm here, but I'm not here. I'm here, but you don't feel me. Klalu. Yeah, Klalu. And I know what anyway is going to be. Of a sof kosof, who's gonna, as you might say, eat the lops, if you do, is you're gonna cop it because you did it. I didn't do it, says Eibusher, not me. You did it. So here we see that the Lashon is very amazing. The Rebbe says, why the Bahar Geshosei? It's all in his Hargoshe. It's not mitzad the immediate Ha'inyan. Harihu Chofshi B'Bechirosei V'hu Oisei Mikoyach Atzmei V'hu Mipnei V'kol Zehu Mipnei Sheb'chinas Machshova Da'ach Hi B'chinas Havdolah Sa'erak Lagamrei L'zei She'ina Nirgish Panim. Oh, yeah, but therefore you don't feel it. It's an amazing thing. Here we are, Davis is playing this amazing hide and seek. Because he wanted that you should do it yourself. He wanted that everything should be the man's own action and his own, as it were, responsibility, his own achrayus. And that was the unbelievable trick of the creation, that even though everything is Him, and even after the Tzimtzum with the Zach already, even after that, everything is really Him, and yet on the other hand, it's not Him, it's you. It's really you, even though it's only in your Hargosha. It's not really Matati Amit Yisa'inian, so it's like the Eibster playing in your Hargosha. He's playing with you an amazing game. On the one hand, He's giving you an Hargosha which leads you into all sorts of possible folly, and yet on the other hand, He says, oh yes, I know what's going on, but you are really the one, you cannot do this to yourself and not me. Count me out. So it's an amazing thing. Heel Musik in the Geutel Pili place of this particular in. Over here, the what you might call him, the Batlanische reader, he might sort of ask you a question. He might say, what do you need this whole in for Akus, the Rotzen, it came through the Tzimtzum, there's a Rotzen Kloli, and it's Ma'ain, the Rotzen, is the Atman. What do you need all that for? It's Nimshul, but it's not, because the fact that he says Yoisha Da'ak, that implies that there are also what we call Igulim in Ak. There's also Tifim. And the Alter brings that down also in Tanya over there in the Geras HaKodesh. So maybe next week we'll hopefully have a bit more clear. We'll be holding already in Yerushalayim, Iyar the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, Mamish. Then we'll be able to sort of point and say, Zakei Livian, Vehu, we won't need a whiteboard or a blackboard with different madrigas. We'll be able to point at them and say, Elokeinu Zeh. But Al Chaponim will talk a little bit about the Inyaf and the Gulim Da'ach and the Yesha Da'ach. The Alter Rebbe's got a whole Inyan in Likutei Torah about it. That's not really so tremendously important, but just to put it right, we have to do that. But don't come to us, what do you need all that for? Just bring about the means. I mean, you're doing it for B'chinas Richuk anyway. Bring him about, and, what's all this in for Ak? You had a Rotzen, and the Rotzen goes another level, and it's another level, but the Rotzen of Ak is a Kloli and Achmi, and I do so. Bishul Mazeh. The Eivshim Mitzad Kol Yoch, he could have brought the Rotzen closer, and he could just, made. And why does he put Ak inside of you? And then he puts it inside all the Nivroim. Ak is there, Mitzad all them, Mitzad the Yin of Makiv. It's there, B'Kulam. So we have to say, we have to say that the Eibishter wanted that really there's a beetle in all the Nivroim. And there's a beetle Achmi Vamiti, that even though they feel one thing, the emes is that they're not like that. In other words, that their feeling, even if it runs away and gets bad, it can't really change the emes of Matthias. In other words, you can make a blunder on your own cheshbon, but you don't change the Amitis Ayin. In other words, that VMS, everything is bottled, but it's a beetle, and to a certain extent, you know that, even though you don't, but you do. In other words, that there's something in you which tells you, that you're bottled to Elikus, and particularly in this in from the Bechira, in the Hargosh, in the Yoisha Da'ak, and that's what we call the Avasur. The Alter Rebbe calls it in Yud Ches Yud Tes. He calls that the Ava Musateres. That there's something hidden in a Yid when he says to him, Avodah Zorah, that the world's a Matthias. He says, the world's a Matthias. What's it? Ain't Matthias, ain't Oid Milvade. Bemas. Does it the Amen? Even though it comes to us, that hidden inside every creature and every being, there's a Hargosh, there ain't Oid Milvade. He said, even all the worlds and all the animals and all everything, deep inside there's something in them, what they're bottled telekus, and somewhere or another, that saves the world. Otherwise, and so that's what, if you look up in many places of Siddha, and in Derech Mitzvah Secha, Bekama Mekemus, the Tzemach Tzedek in Marif Bezeh, that what, on the Gemara in Baba Basha, the Gemara brings it in Baba Basha, that what the Shemesh goes down by Marav, it goes down in the west, so that's because the Shechina is Bamara. The Gemara sagt dort, Shechina is Bamara. Well, that's a whole Indian gave verstehen what this meint, aber auch upon him. Das ist die Indian. And Mamira, the Shemesh is Mishtachavele, la Kodesh Baruch, and a whole sivu. And he brings over that all the sivuvim, all the heavenly bodies, all what they mistover, they all go, and it's all an Indian of Mishtachavele to the Avish, and they themselves, on different levels, are aware of it. And that's what the Rambam writes. The Rambam writes that all the heavenly bodies are Bali Yediyah v'yoidim es boiram u'mishabchim u'farim lo. As they bring the Rambam dort in Luchas Yesodei HaTorah, in Perek Dalet, bring the Rambam. And I know, it's a pillage that the whole heavenly bodies and all the Zachen, they're all moving around, and they're all being mishtachaveh to the whole world is just one indication of bittul to the. Even that's what, if you look up in Perek Membeis in Tanya, in the Hagua, look up in Perek Membeis in Tanya in the Hagua, right near the end of the Perek. And he brings over there, it's like a whole lot of avodim bowing down to a millah. B'tei chachot. And my whole country said the world is not what we think it is. The world, and Mamele, the Arizal, he could understand what the birds were saying one to the other. They stayed. And Shlomo HaMelech, das Gevur's mentality, and they say that Shlomo HaMelech and the Arizal, that they knew what was called Sichas Ha'ilona, at the Kodim, particularly the palm trees, that they literally passed messages one to the other. And their bottle telekus and a lot of the movements of the trees and the way they give off lots of miles and inyonim is really their bittul to elokus. So all depends how you look at things. We just look at the world like a lot of goyim says, maybe we just see Gashmi sticky down, they're all doing it. They say, well, there's a law of nature, there's something else. And, Shalom Alisol, Malay Sixlofen, and Mazelze. So Chassidus is nicht to say. In Chassidus kommt to say it's all. So therefore, we're not Ark, and we're not the Yoelams, we're Makabel from Ark, then there wouldn't be this bittel in the Nevroim. Or the bittel in the Nevroim is only day Ark, and in Yidden Nafil Pnimiut, Yoisha the Ark, well, das bringt the Indian von Avim and Soteres. He feels something in him which just says, oh, everything is only even if he's a Kal Sheba Kali. Even though in Perek Lamed, if you look up in Perek Lamed in Tanya, then the Alter Rebbe makes a hero out of the Kal Sheba Kalim. So you have to be careful how you refer to Yidden Phil Kal Sheba Kalim. You've got to watch your step, because they said he's a bit of a hero, the Kal Sheba Kalim. Obviously, das ist die Nekuda. Therefore, it's a periodic Sache. This whole piece here shows that's why there had to be this rotzen kloli. And then there's a rotzen yoter kloli, but that's a rotzen ifnayat simtzum. Well, that's really too high. So then there's another shot. Why did there have to be? That's already an underamount. That had to be for the Yossi Lovi. All right, guys. Have a good evening.
Yeah.